mutilate and take out whatever on this elk and then take off. But like 14 witnesses all claimed the same thing.
I'll tell you what, if you seen a UFO and shortly after you seen a mutilated elk, that those kind of things would stay with you a long time. That would mess you up a little bit, I would think, especially mentally and trying to sleep. I mean, it just would.
Well, I think anything like that would, emotionally, tear a person apart. Let alone you see a UFO taking off from the ground, and then you go over there to investigate where it was at, and you see an elk that's been mutilated. What would you think? And, they were lucky. It could have been them it got mutilated, not the elk.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I'd be thinking. I would be thinking, what if we would have came here 5 minutes before the elk? Would it be us and the elk find us instead of us find the elk?
I don't know.
Ouch.
On October 26, 1999, 2 pilots, and both of them were former military pilots, were in shock to see a gigantic light fall in them off the wing, and then the objects turned off and suddenly streaked off to the east.
There's so many pilots that have seen stuff dating all the way back to, pre-World War II even. But, it's a wonder that a lot of UFOs haven't crashed into our aircraft somewhere along the lines, more so than maybe what has happened already, because there's just so much out there, like that O'Hare incident when that, supposedly that UFO was at the airport and was shot straight up in the air. Geez, if one of them planes in a way, they're going to get destroyed.
Could be. And now I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be talking about tonight with Tim Swartz. We're going to be talking about Lieutenant Colonel philip-corso. And what's interesting about him, he joined the Army in 1942. He served in the Army intelligence in Europe. And later he became chief counter-intelligence officer in Rome. In 1945, he was assigned to safe passage where 10,000 Jews and World War II refugees were sent out of Rome to different parts of the world, including, Pakistan.
Wow.
And he won major citations because he fought during World War II, on the ground as a lieutenant. And during the Korean War from 1950 to 53, he again performed intelligence duties under General Douglas MacArthur.
Oh, wow.
This guy has a lot of things behind him. Now, he did go up at one point in front of the Senate Committee on POWs and was discredited by John McCain because John McCain said that Corso had a lot of, weird ideas, maybe like he fabricated some of them in his mind. But he was claiming there was still POWs from the Korean War being held prisoners.
Oh, wow. Listen, that wouldn't surprise me any. I don't know why. The only thing I can think of that they maybe not listen to him about something like that is maybe they didn't, maybe our government or McCain or whoever didn't want to lose face and admit to it or even look into it because of that. But God forbid if that was true, the poor prisoners that probably died over there in prison. That's just horrible.
Oh yeah, and then he had a personal relationship with Eisenhower. He was on the staff for President Eisenhower National Security Council from 1953 to 1957.
Well, that's something there because, one of the theories is that Eisenhower made some deals from them up there, so to speak.
Yeah, and then in 1961, he became chief of the Pentagon's Foreign Technology Desk in the Army Research Development Section. And that is where he, was supposedly giving, alien artifacts to, various companies to, see if they could duplicate it and get it out into, the population. Things like fiber optics and all that stuff. Yeah,
that's the turning point where he started to circulate that stuff down through the common people through corporations or companies or whatnot. And yeah, that's interesting.
Oh yeah, and some of the awards he won was Legion of Merit, the Army Commendation Medal, Bronze Star, American Campaign Medal, American Defense Service Medal, European, Africa, Middle East Campaign Medal, and a World War II Victory Medal. So he's won a lot of medals and awards during his military career.
That's a lot of hardware right there. So, could you imagine all the contacts he must have made in the secret op world, so to speak? That he must have really, he knew some people that I'm sure we would like to interview that has probably passed away now, but he must have knew some heavy hitters in his day.
I think so. I mean, the problem is a lot of people kind of try to discredit, because he came out with a book. Now, he was only the co-writer of the book. There was somebody else that, wrote the book, and he co-wrote it. And that is where some of the claims kind of get, a little bit strange there on, all this filing cabinet that was supposedly brought into his office. And the general came up to him and said, well, you're in charge of this, Philip. You're in charge to get this out to various manufacturers for they could reproduce what these devices are. That's where, the story starts kind of wondering, was that true or was not true? Was it kind of enhanced, because of the book sales?
It's hard to say, but here's the thing. I mean, just the fact that he's dealing with alien technology, I mean, how much more, you can't get much stranger than that. So, I mean, how do you discern from that to whatever else that may involve anything with aliens or alien technology as far as that goes? Who's to say it's not all true? We don't know.
I know some of the stuff that he gave out for reverse engineering, some of the artifacts were, like the particle beam, fiber optics, lasers, integrated circuit chips, and Kevlar, the bulletproof material. And he also claims there was other devices that he gave out also.
Oh, yeah, I don't doubt it. I think even night vision, was one of them. But, yeah, that's a lot of technology. Just fiber optics alone is a major step. We've talked about this before. We went pretty much from tubes to integrated circuits to fiber optics and all this stuff in a pretty short time, if you really think about it.
Well, we went from tubes to transistors for a long period of time. And then from transistors, we went into integrated circuits. And then we went into integrated circuits now that are so small, that you need a magnifying glass to see it. But we do the same thing like, remember when you were young, you had a transistor radio, and the more money you spent, you had more transistors in it. Like they had the 2 transistor radio, the 4 transistor, the 6, and, all that, which would give you more volume and better reception, the more transistors. It had more pulling power. But it went from transistors to integrated circuits really strangely fast.
Yeah, exactly. And if it kind of brings up a point. If you think about, we've talked about implants before. Could you imagine how much information is on that tiny implant that they put in people as far as the integrated circuit goes? So maybe that's what they were trying to use to someday, reverse engineer that. Because boy, the amount of information on maybe an implant is got to be mind blowing compared to what we put on a circuit.
Well, even now, the implant, if you have an animal, you can get, its license number, your address, medical condition, all that on a little chip that they insert under the skin, which is like really small. But these things with their, the capabilities, we don't know what the alien implants do. We don't have the thought. We can sit there and say, oh, they give somebody better health. Hey, maybe it can. Maybe it gives them the capability where they can watch what the person does or think what the person thinks. They can get that information. We just don't know what these implants do and what they're for. But it sure seems like a lot of people claim that they've been implanted. And if that's the case, that is so scary.
That is scary. Not only that, but maybe these implants can do a whole facet of things. Maybe they can see what we're seeing. Maybe they can hear what we're hearing. Maybe they can even control us from what we say and do. I mean, it's a whole. It just boggles the mind at what these things can do and how they can affect us. And the scary part is it's out of our control, and a lot of people probably have them and don't even know they have them.
That's the scary part. No, another thing, like I mentioned on Friday, maybe there's something for mind control. Not now, but like I remember in the 60s, and it started actually in the late 50s, the Soviet Union sent over a whole bunch of spies, right? And they were brainwashed that they didn't even realize they were a spy. But it was a key word that they would hear, and all of a sudden they would do their chore. If that would mean take their little nuclear suitcase device somewhere to detonate it or, assassinate people or whatever. There was literally hundreds of these sleeper agents all across this country. And, they were never, I think the majority of them were never activated. But we don't know. These implants could be the same thing. Maybe these aliens are taking huge numbers of people, implanting them for mind control down the road.
Oh, yeah. I think it'd be easily acceptable that maybe up to 1 million people worldwide could have these things, and it'd be like a Manchurian Candidate, like that movie where, like you say, they activate one word or a infrasound or something, and it triggers you into automatically. You know what you're going to do, and you don't even know you're going to do it, and God knows what that could be.
That's the scary part. Could you imagine if they implanted a lot of politicians and everything? I mean, if they wanted to take over our planet or whatever down the road, I mean, all of a sudden they just like flip a switch and all these people have these pre-programmed, chips in their body, and they carry out what they were programmed to do.
Exactly. And now here's another scary thought. What if a lot of those people that have these that's going to be triggered is working in high and security areas, like, say, in the military or nuclear bases or nuclear missile ranges and stuff like that? That's a scary thought, too, because all it takes is one guy or a few guys to trigger that's, got access to the trigger or part of it. And you know what? And then you got somebody across the country over in Russia doing the same thing. All it takes is a few wrong errors or movements in history, and we're all messed up. Oh, yeah, that could be. But could you imagine, though, all of a sudden somebody flips a switch and all these people start doing weird things and start, taking over the world or taking over the country? But in this case, I think it's worldwide. I think that we're not the only country where the people are being subject to implants. I think it's just worldwide. And that, it doesn't make sense. I could see, like there's been famous people, go out in the jungles or go out into the forest and they take animals, right? Or they put radio beacons on, transmitters on like certain animals where they can track how they survive, how they live during the winter, how far they travel. I don't think they would do it to humans at the amount of people that are claiming that they've been implanted. There's so many people claiming that they're implanted. It's really, really scary. It is scary, and since Dr. Lear died, there's nobody to really pass the torch to, because I don't think there'd be enough doctors to keep up with all the implants as far as people finding them and wanting them, taking them out. And that's just the ones that probably discovered that they've got implants. Imagine all the ones that probably got implants that don't even know it. I really think after Dr. Lear passed on, he had a group of other people that were actually doing the operation. He would just assist. But the problem is, I think they just all backed away from it because, what's the point? There's so many people with implants. What are you going to do? Bring up 1 or 2 people a day in and remove their implants? I think we already proved that people are being implanted. They have devices in them. We got to figure out why and what those implants are for. And my logical thinking is maybe down the road it's for some type of mind control, to do something when they're designated to do it. We don't know. Look at today in the news. Did you see the news today about all these asteroids that's going to go past us? Oh, my goodness. I did. I read a quick story right before we got on the air, and I didn't get a chance to read it. But tell me. I think it's 13 or 14 of them. The biggest one's the size of the Great Pyramid. Lord.
And, you know, most of them are far enough away. One isn't. But then the